My last video was a review of Harley Benton's new aged series TE62-LA, and today I'm putting it up against my $1,000 special edition Fender Vintera Strat. The TE62-LA is available on Thomann for €230 or $240, and the Vintera 2 cost me about €1,000 on a local shop, but the equivalent standard Vintera model is on Thomann for about €1,090 or $1,111, which is now the Vintera 3, as the 2 seems to no longer be available. But this is of course not a one-to-one comparison. The Fender costs about 5 times more than the Harley Benton, so what's the point of even comparing? Isn't the Fender obviously better? Well, yes, but the point is really to explore exactly how the Fender is better and what you actually get by paying 5 times the amount. And also, I do realize this is kind of an apples to oranges comparison because Strats and Tellies are quite different in both character and construction, but because this is a self-funded channel, I have to create the videos with the guitars I have. And while a Telly versus Telly comparison would have been a bit cleaner, I still think it's worth doing the comparison, especially for players interested in the Harley Benton aged series. This comparison will be split in 5 chapters: specs, build quality, sound, playability, and who it is for. We'll start off the video with a 1-minute pre-recorded demo song comparing the 2 guitars, and we'll hear 3 real-time clips with no processing throughout the video, so you can hear the guitars compared in isolation. I'm Guy Batista, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It's a great way to help the channel, and I appreciate your support. And also, you can get my free presets for Boss and Valeton modelers on my Buy Me a Coffee page. The link will be in the description. Hope you like them, and back to the video. Starting off with specs, both guitars have alder bodies and roasted maple necks. The Fender is actually a special edition in Fiesta Red with a roasted maple neck and Fat 60 custom shop pickups, which are not features of the standard Vintera 2 Strats. The Harley Benton is part of the brand's new aged series, which are relic'd guitars, so there's quite a difference in the finish of these two. Both necks are relatively thin, with the Fender one being described as 60C and the Harley Benton simply as C. The shapes are similar, but the Fender neck is a bit thicker, although they're both very comfortable for my playing style. The Vintera has a vintage truss rod, which I personally don't find ideal, and the Harley Benton has a double-action truss rod accessible from the top. The fingerboard radius on the Fender is the vintage 725 and 12 inches on the Harley Benton. The fretboard of the Fender is rosewood with vintage tall frets, and the Harley Benton has a maple fretboard with medium jumbo nickel silver frets. The Fender has a bone nut while the Harley Benton has a graphite one. And as for pickups, as I mentioned, the Fender comes equipped with custom shop Fat 60 Fender pickups, which in my opinion sound very good in both clean and distorted contexts, and the Harley Benton has the new Isola pickups, which are developed in-house by the brand. All in all, the Fender is a more vintage spec guitar, while the Harley Benton goes more towards the modern specs, like the modern truss rod, bigger frets, and the flatter radius, but it keeps some vintage appointments like the traditional 3-saddle bridge and the vintage style tuners. In terms of build quality, there's a considerable gap between these guitars. This is likely the category where we find the most difference between these instruments. The Fender is a very well-built guitar, more so than the Mexican Fenders I owned in the past, and more so even than some American ones I had. The Vintera Strat has been one of my favorite guitars of all time, despite Fender's recent bad decisions, and the incredible build quality has been one of the main reasons. The Harley Benton is also a very impressive build. Everything on this guitar is pretty solid. The hardware is good quality, the neck looks really good, and the relic'd finish, while not comparable to a $3,000 custom shop, actually looks pretty nice. But while I'm saying the Harley Benton is well built, when we put them side by side and compare directly, the differences become apparent. The hardware on the Fender is better, which is noticeable in the quality of the tuners, the knobs, and the pickup switcher. The finish on the back of the neck is also smoother on the Fender, which makes the neck far more comfortable to play than the Harley Benton. The Harley Benton is a very well-built guitar for its price point, but when compared directly to a $1,000 guitar, we can tell that the materials used on the Fender are higher quality. The sound difference between these two is an interesting topic. The differences are very nuanced, they're not super obvious, and I'm gonna do my best to try to explain my experience. When playing the guitars in isolation with a clean tone, it seems to me like the Fender sounds clearly much better. Both guitars have a very similar output, but the frequency response on the Fender is more pleasing when playing clean parts, especially on the neck pickup. The compressors and reverb sound better through the Fender, and there's a high-end chime that is more muted on the Harley Benton. In my review of the TE62, I mentioned that the neck pickup is very muted, and I still have the same opinion. In terms of clean tones, I find myself leaning much more towards the Fender. But when I turned on distortion, things got a lot more difficult to distinguish. If you listen to the demo song on the intro of this video, there is a difference in the character of the two guitars, likely because it's a Tele and a Strat. And in my computer with the non-compressed audio file, I can tell that the Fender has a bit more texture in the notes, while the Harley Benton is slightly less detailed. But through YouTube compression and under the lights of a full mix, I'm not sure I could pass a blind test between these two. But let me also add that the demo song was recorded on the bridge pickup of both guitars. And while they both sounded great to my ears, when I tried to play over a backing track with the neck pickup of each, the Strat remained super clean and punchy, while the Tele became muddier and more difficult to bring out in the mix. So while in the Fender the quality of the pickups is equal, in the Harley Benton I like the bridge pickup a lot, while the neck has a frequency response that I don't like as much. So all in all, the Fender sounds better in general, but that's more obvious with clean sounds and less so with distorted ones. I found that the difference in playability is not as big as I was expecting. The Fender plays better, yes. The fretwork is better, and the fretboard is smoother than the Harley Benton, but not by as much as I thought. The Harley Benton fretboard is in fact a bit less smooth, but I think this will improve with time, as it generally does with new guitars. But the fretwork is just not as good. But considering the price difference between them, I would say Harley Benton did a fantastic job in making these guitars very easy to play. I think this has been one of the big frustrations for new players over the years, because it used to be that cheap guitars were hard to play. That is not the case here at all. The TE62 plays great, and I think it will improve as I use it more. It's not at the same level of super smooth playability as the Fender, but if the Harley Benton was my only guitar, I don't think playability would be a problem. These are two great guitars that I could easily recommend to anyone with no second thoughts. However, they are a bit different and it's worth considering if you want to spend 5 times the money for what you get. I think the Harley Benton is a fully capable instrument that can do the work most players need. The only exception I would bring up is that I don't think the pickups are good enough for final album recordings in the studio, especially if you're using the neck pickup a lot and using clean tones. For recording purposes, in my experience, the Fender offers a much nicer experience because the frequency response of the pickups is much more pleasing, particularly in clean passages. But on that note, I also found that the Harley Benton sounds really cool in the bridge pickup with high gain and fuzz tones. It has sort of a distinct, almost doom metal kind of sound, so if that's your vibe, this may be a really great guitar for stoner riffs and doom sounds. So if you're not planning on doing final studio recordings with it, I think the Harley Benton is a great buy for almost anyone. The Fender is a better sounding instrument with better hardware and a more premium look, even though the Harley Benton looks great with the aged finish. For beginners, I would recommend you start with the Harley Benton, and in time, if you want to try something more high-end, then you can always get a Vintera or a PRS Silver Sky, for example. The Harley Benton has everything you'll need for a long time, and it looks pretty cool if you're into the relic'd look. For more advanced players, I think it's a nuanced conversation. The Fender is more reliable, the tuning stability is better, the sound is more balanced, and it retains the market value better if you ever decide to sell. If I could only have one, I would choose the Fender because at the end of the day, it's a more balanced instrument that helps me record with great sound no matter what the music is. But the Harley Benton is a phenomenal second guitar, which I'm much more at ease taking to gigs, rehearsals, on vacation, because if I put a dent on it, it's fine. It was pretty cheap and it's relic'd anyway. So I don't have to be as careful with it, which to me is honestly a liberating feeling sometimes. So I like them both, and I think they both serve their purposes. I'm just happy that we finally live in a world where cheap guitars are a genuine option for guitar players to have more sound diversity. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, and up next you can watch my reviews of both the Fender and the Harley Benton if you want more details on these guitars. Anyway, thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.